The 1995 Rugby World Cup was the first major event hosted in South Africa after the end of isolation and the advent of democracy. But many black South Africans still saw the Springbok as a tainted symbol of privilege in a brutal and unfair past. And the players who made the most of that privilege had their own ideas about this mysterious man named Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela.
Well, we probably didn't know a lot about him then. Obviously in the years before, the propaganda and the stories we heard of this former terrorist who was in jail, I suppose your views were obviously tarnished a little bit.
Maybe out of ignorance and misinformation, this is the sort of the broad spectrum of who this name was a political prisoner, and that's about it.
The Boks were not favoured to lift the William Webb Ellis Trophy, but they did become masters of their fate the day they met the world's most famous prisoner, who was now their president.
And we respect him as a great leader, and his visit here has honoured us.
We just had the most amazing tea, where I felt like I was talking to a very wise old man that wanted to know exactly what's happening in my life and where I'm going with my life. And I left an hour later knowing that South Africa's in safe hands.
The day we met him was just before the World Cup started, and he flew in his helicopter, came and spoke to us at training. When he arrived, he was incredibly charismatic. Could not help but just be humbled in Madiba's presence. And to meet him and then for him to say a few words and chat, and we had photos with him, his message, it was an incredible day.
Well, their training has been highly professional, and they are a very good team. And if it were not for the years when they were boycotted, when they could not participate in international competitions, if it were not for that, we would know, everybody would know who was going to be victorious tomorrow.
Before the tournament, sport in much of the country was split along racial lines. The black majority had a deep love of football, while many whites gave their support to cricket and rugby. In the Eastern Cape, where Mandela grew up, a rich history of black involvement in cricket and rugby only served to prove the truth. Sport knows no colour.
Hands, take target. Nice.
Mandela knew that, and soon so did his fellow South Africans.
To see the demographic breakdown change in the supporter base was incredible. To be driving to practice and see the taxis going past with the Springbok flag hanging out the window. Incredible. On the Saturday morning, we before breakfast we would go for a little team jog and do some stretching and just start the body warm-up process and the getting ready process. To have the little kids, the street kids and the newspaper vendors shouting and calling and running with us on the streets. Absolutely fantastic.
As they drove into Ellis Park to play the mighty All Blacks in the World Cup final, the Boks realised that the entire country was behind them.
No one gave us a chance to win the World Cup in the first place, never mind getting to the final. And also what made us so much more relaxed and calm was the whole South Africa was behind the team. And when we were on the field, we knew that we in control of the game, and so we knew exactly what we have to do on the field. That's what was actually more relaxed for us, because we were in control and we felt powerful and strong playing against all the other nations.
Minutes before the match, the mood in the changing room was intense. And then, the miracle man walked in.
Aside from the bus trip to the ground, for me it was always the most stressful part of the day. And you just wanted to get out, you just want to go and play. And next thing the door opened and this massive guy came in, had a look around, and then in came Madiba. And I think what was most inspiring was he didn't just stand there in the middle of the room and give one message. He walked around, chatted, and had almost a little personalised message for each player. If there was anything I look back on and say, there were some precious moments during that period, that was one of them.
The game itself was a tight affair, as Andrew Mertens and Joel Stransky traded penalties and dropped goals. The teams were tied on 9 points apiece after 80 minutes, and the match went into extra time.
Joel was not particularly great with the drop kicks. He wasn't spot on every time. But funny enough, I recall the words of Pitch Christie saying, "Joel, just keep on doing that. Because," and I quote, "you never know when you might need that." So we called a move. Franco called a move, which was not the move that the ball would go to Joel. It was actually a move that the ball would be picked up by Joost at the back of the scrum. He would break blindside and he would play Franco inside. We'll set it up again and then play it wide. While the move was called and we were busy scrumming for the ball, they changed the move. Joost changed the move because he got the call from Joel. He just had the feeling. And as I said, the rest is history.
Stransky looks for the drop. Has he got it? Yes, it's over. Stransky's drop number 2 in the match, and South Africa are in the lead, 15 points to 12. That is it. The final whistle, then South Africa win this Rugby World Cup final by 15 points to 12.
As the Boks savoured their triumph, the invisible 16th man appeared on the field, and the crowd, 95% of it white, began to chant his name. Joy and relief seized the country. Black and white celebrated together as they had never done before. For the first time, they weren't black, they weren't white. They were simply South Africans, just like their president.
I walked up to him and magic. You know, when I shook his hand, I felt like hugging him. I really felt like giving him the biggest hug in the world, but protocol and statesmanship came into play. I just shook his hand and he said to me, "Francois, thank you very much for what you've done for South Africa." I couldn't believe that he said that. And I said to him, "No, Madiba, thank you for what you've done for South Africa, because if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have had the support of 43 million.
Those heady days of racial unity may have faded, but for a few fleeting weeks, the 2010 Football World Cup drew us out of our colour-coded lives, and we were a nation once more.
Madiba realized that sport is very powerful, because sport cuts across everything. You know, it cuts across all issues. It makes everyone a champion. It makes everyone happy and sad, because we all want our sport teams to do well. Like the Soccer World Cup is now shown again. Because of the Soccer World Cup, the Blue Bulls had to go to Soweto to go and play a match there. I think the quote of Victor Matfield is amazing. When he got out of the bus, he said, "I heard Boere music and vuvuzelas at the same time." And that's South Africa, you know, that's our culture.
And if we made it happen once, and twice, we can make it happen again.